Welcome back to Wellness Wave Radio. Thanks for tuning in this morning to ride the wave with us. Each week our goal is to give you at least one suggestion that will make your life a little better. My name is Phil George. I'm a clinical biochemist, certified personal trainer, and a health coach. Please remember, everything we discuss on the show is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. Always seek the guidance of your medical professional. I just want to mention, we had, last week we had Dr. Emily, my business partner. We have a clinic now up in on Burncoat Street, and we're dealing specifically with people with any type of dementia, Alzheimer's, brain fog, traumatic brain injuries, anything like that. It's a new technology, and we covered it on last week's show. It's called photobiomodulation. Actually, it's transcranial photobiomodulation. Long word, fancy word. It just means they put a very specific helmet on you. Has red light, penetrates the scalp. It's non-invasive, but what it does is it kind of helps detangle the amyloid plaque, and the tau tangles and things like that. Also helps getting over, and there's a lot of research on this. So feel free to email me, philgeorge@charter.net. I can send you all the studies on it, but we're the only one right now. We have a relationship with a couple of companies on this. We're the only ones, I looked this up, in Massachusetts that are doing this. But this has been around in Canada for years, they have huge clinics treating people with dementia, Alzheimer's. So if you know anybody that has this condition, it's the number one fear people have as they get older, is they're losing their cognition. So one of the things, again, if you want to email me, philgeorge@charter.net, we can set you up with an appointment. We should have everything in by the end of the week, and if we can help you, that's great. And again, we do an intake with Dr. Emily. She'll make sure it's appropriate for you. And again, she can prescribe drugs and things like that, so she can do the intake. And then we have a whole clinic that basically goes around helping people get their cognition back. But today's show is going to be on protein. Now, protein is a real popular topic right now. It's everywhere. People are telling you should eat this kind of protein, you should do this. Everything has so many grams of protein in it. Well, one of the things a lot of people don't understand is not all protein is actually the same. There's different types of protein. And a little bit of nutrition, biochemistry, whatever you want to call it. So there's basically protein is made up of amino acids. So there's actually 20 amino acids, and 9 of them are called essential amino acid. And that just means your body cannot make it. Other than the 9, your body can put different types of proteins together to make amino acids. A good example would be, I brought these little blocks here from Thomas the Tank Engine, and you could have one amino acid, and it has to bind to another amino acid like this, and then this could be called what's called a peptide. It's part of a protein, and you can see there's all different types of amino acids, and they have to go together in very specific ways. Otherwise, the protein doesn't work. Now, there's protein all over your body. Collagen is the most ubiquitous protein. That just means it's in your nails, your hair, everywhere is collagen. Protein makes up your immune cells. In other words, you need protein for everything. One of the big issues right now is people get older. There's a condition, it's called sarcopenia. Now, sarcopenia just means a wasting away of the muscles. Interesting study they did. When I do seminars, I'll ask the attendees, I'll ask them, why do you think most people fall down? And the most common answer we get was they lose their balance. It's something called proprioception. That just means that you don't quite know where your body is in space, and you wind up falling down. Now, as you get older, you do wind up. Obviously, your balance isn't going to be as good, but that's not the main reason. So they did this interesting study. And if you guys remember marionettes, from Pinocchio, where they have these strings on them holding them up. Well, they did this with older people, and they had tiles all over the floor. And again, they were held up, and they walked along, and they had all of these different gadgets on them to figure out exactly where they, what they were looking at and things like that, their eyes and everything else. Sensors on their body, on their different muscles. And what they found out, when they're walking along, they pulled up the tile so the person fell over. And some of them fell over, some were strong enough to hold them up. And what they found out, it wasn't so much that they lost their sense of balance. The problem is that their muscles were too weak to hold them up. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation. In fact, this happened to me. I was going into a coffee shop once, and they had a rug there, and the rug was kind of like it was bunched up, and I didn't see it, and I kind of hit it, and I almost fell over. But I go to the gym every day, so my muscles are strong enough to hold me up, so I did not fall down. However, somebody a lot younger than me that works there, unfortunately, this guy was obese. And he was walking along, and he hit the carpet. He actually fell down and took a nasty fall. Young guy, maybe in his 20s or 30s, but again, he was obese. So this goes to show it's really important to have muscle. And obviously, in order to have muscle, you need protein. Protein builds muscle. So people are big on protein. So again, we talked before. You got 20 amino acids. 9 of them are essential amino acids. So I'll give you an example. I'll use this. So let's just say that this is one of the essential amino acids is called leucine. And leucine is what triggers what they call anabolism, which means anabolism, like anabolic steroids, where you get huge. Well, anabolism means you're growing muscle. And in order to grow muscles, one of the key essential amino acids is called leucine. So let's just imagine, this obviously is just from from Thomas the Tank Set, but just to illustrate. So this is leucine. So you need leucine. So what happens is leucine, because it's an essential amino acid, can bind to a lot of other things. It could bind to, let's say this is taurine over here. It could bind to something here. So it's essential. It can go anywhere. And this would wind up making a protein. This is what you need, to build muscle and things like that. But if you don't have the essential amino acid, this can bind to this and maybe to something else, but it doesn't make a complete protein because you need an essential amino acid to do it. When I go to the gym all the time, and most of the people know I'm a biochemist there, so they do ask me a lot of questions. And one of the common complaints, there's one guy there, he's a big black guy. The guy was a bodybuilder. He was huge, had all the muscles. He didn't need my help in terms of getting bigger muscles. But what he said to me, and this is a common thing among bodybuilders, they pass a lot of gas, which means the joke is they clear out an elevator. So again, this guy was an engineer. He's a smart guy, but he's not a biochemist. And he said to me, he says, why is it, I know I have to eat a lot of protein, but why is it that I'm passing all this gas all the time? So I explained to him, this is how it works. So what happens is, again, with the only difference between a carbohydrate is like for bread, stuff like that. It's basically what's in it is in the name. It's carbon and hydrogen, carbohydrate. It's like a long chain, goes together like this. It's hydrogen, it's all bind together, and that's broken up into sugar. So you have the backbone of a carbohydrate. The only difference between really a carbohydrate and an amino acid, the amino acid that makes protein, is something called an amine group. It's an NH2 group, so it's nitrogen and two hydrogens. I know we're getting a little into biochemistry here, but just follow me along. So basically, it's nitrogen and 2 hydrogens. And that's what keeps it. But what happens is, remember before we said in order to make a protein, you need the essential amino acids. So let's say you're taking protein that doesn't have the essential amino acids in it, and that's a lot. There's something called, and the way you can figure it out, you can email me, philgeorge@charter.net. It's something called the DIAS score. This stands for digestible amino acid score. So you could get a protein from one source, let's say a plant source, and that could only be 50% absorbable. So even though you're getting 100 grams of protein, only 50 grams of that is getting absorbed because you don't have the essential amino acids inside of it. But if you get it from, let's say, meat, and we're made of meat, that could have like 99% or even 100% absorbable. So it goes in and your body uses it and it makes muscle and makes nails, hairs, and everything else. So even though you say 100 grams of protein in this particular shake and 100 grams of protein in this particular shake, this could be absorbed 100% into your body, used 100%. This part, only 50, sometimes 30, sometimes 10%, because it doesn't have many of these essential amino acids in it, so you can't use it. So what happens is this. Remember, the amino acid is basically what it is again, the backbone is a carbohydrate, carbon and hydrogen. And there's an amine group over here, the NH2 group. But what happens is if you can't use it, if all of these little proteins are running around in your body, but you can't bind it to an essential amino acid to make the protein, what happens is this goes into waste. This is called de-animation, de-animation, yeah. So what happens with that is, what happens is this goes into a waste product, and your body breaks it down. So the NH2 group, remember, that was bound to this, it goes off and it turns into, and another hydrogen gets bound to it. So NH2 gets bound to NH3. NH3 is ammonia. Ammonia is a toxin, okay? So the reason why these people that are eating so much protein and they don't, and they're not getting, and they're not getting the correct amount of amino acids, the essential amino acids, what happens with that is it turns into ammonia. If you've had your blood work done, you have something called BUN, blood urea nitrogen, and creatinine. Those are waste products, and that can do, you probably heard, do a little damage to your kidneys if you have poor kidneys. So that's the reason why you want to get the correct amount of the correct form of protein, and not just any protein. And again, you can feel free to email me, philgeorge@charter.net. I can break this down for you and let you know exactly what kind of protein you need. So most of the time, and I know people are vegans and vegetarians, and I do have clients that are vegans, but that's not a good source of protein. It's your body just does not metabolize it very well, and you produce a lot of waste product. A lot of that ammonia, you're going to wind up with, it's waste product because your body can't use it because you don't have the essential amino acids to bind to make an actual protein. So that's one of the big issues again with protein. So not all protein is created equal. You have to be careful where you get it from. Normally, actually, one of the best sources of protein are eggs. Eggs have a lot of essential amino acids in there. They have a lot of other good things. I eat eggs every day, just about. I eat eggs probably 5 days a week. Other 2 days I have salmon. Oh, in fact, salmon is another very good source of protein. It also has something called choline in there. And what in your brain has something called acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is very important to keep your brain working. We were talking before about how you really want to have the correct amount of EPA and DHA inside of there, and that's choline. It winds up coating your brain so your brain can work correctly. So again, salmon is another really good source of it. You have to be careful with fish. You don't want to be eating a lot of tuna fish because tuna has a lot of mercury in it. And again, what will happen is if you get a can of tuna, you have no idea how much mercury is in there. A big problem with mercury, it's a heavy metal. And the way your body works, there's a couple of really famous people that actually got mercury poisoning from eating too much swordfish and too much tuna. When I first met my wife and we were dating, what happened is she loved swordfish. And I said, honey, you can't be eating swordfish. There's mercury in there. So fortunately, she's off of swordfish. So Tony Robbins, the very famous motivational speaker, he came down with it. Dr. Oz, who now is in the cabinet, he came down with mercury poisoning, and there was a few other people that came down with it. In fact, I had an acquaintance, I should say, and he had tried to lose a lot of weight, so he went on a tuna diet. He was eating tuna fish all the time. He came down with mercury poisoning. And it's hard to see if you even have mercury poisoning because your body is really, really smart. because heavy metals like mercury and lead. Your body knows it's very dangerous and it can do a lot of brain damage. Obviously, lead, the whole thing guys probably remember from Three Deckers when they had all the lead paint and stuff, and you had to get the place inspected if you had kids there, because interesting, lead actually tastes very sweet. So what happens with kids, if you had paint on the wall and the paint get chipped off, the kids would put it in their mouth and eat it and come down with lead poisoning, and that was a big thing for a while. The other problem is when lead gets into your brain, it messes it up. You could be like really seriously damaged for a really, really long time. It's the same with mercury. It can be very, very dangerous. So, and again, you don't know how much is in that particular can of tuna fish. So, what happens is this: if you take a little bit of mercury in, your body doesn't put it all in one place because it knows it'll damage the organ too much. It may put a little bit in your liver. It may put a little bit in your kidneys. It may put a little bit in your brain. It'll spread it out, okay? But it binds to that particular organ. It's very hard. It's very hard to detox from that. So the way they normally detox people, in fact, I had a call from somebody on my radio show that was worried about that, and he wanted to know how to detox. So the way they do it, when I worked in the hospital, if somebody came in with mercury poisoning or lead poisoning, those are heavy metals, what they would do is they would do something called chelation therapy. And chelation is, actually I got these blocks here. So let's just say that this is a piece of lead or a piece of mercury, and that's floating around in your blood. So what they would do is, and this is what's called the chelating agent. So what happens is they would take it, they would take the blood out of you, like if you donated blood, and they would put it into this chelating agent. And the chelating agent is something that will bind specifically to, let's say to mercury. So mercury is what they call a double cation, which means it has two positive charges. They would have something here that would have two negative charges. See where I'm going with this? So you take the blood out of you. This is sitting there. The mercury goes into the bag. It binds to the chelating agent. It's bound there, and then they take it out and they get rid of it. And they run your blood through this cleaning agent, this basically again with this chelation, and they take it out, and that's how they detox you from from mercury and lead, is they have a chelating agent that takes it out. But again, you may not even know you have mercury poisoning. This is what happened with Tony Robbins and Dr. Oz. They didn't even know they had it. So you're not going to know you have it until you have some very, very serious symptoms. But think about this. If you're getting this into your brain, you could be doing brain damage. And yeah, they could eventually chelate it and get it out. But by then, you may have already done a lot of damage to your body. That's why I recommend do not. There's different schools of thought on this. Some people say a little bit of tuna fish is not going to hurt you, blah, blah, blah. I don't know about you. I don't want to put any toxins in my body at all. I mean, I want to take the chance. So I avoid tuna fish. And the other problem with cans of tuna fish, they're lined with BPA, which is also like a plastic that you don't want. So tuna fish is not the way to go. So salmon, what you want, there's two kinds of salmon. So one of them is called farm salmon, and what farm salmon is, they farm these salmon. They put them in a pen, and they feed them crappy stuff, and the salmon eat it, and then whatever that salmon eats, you eat. So that's not good. You want wild salmon from Alaska. So that's what I have. So I have a company that I work with, and what they do is I get a big box of salmon delivered, right to my house, and then I put it in my freezer. And I haven't looked at the numbers, but again, they eliminate the middleman, because if you're getting salmon from a supermarket, first of all, you don't know if that salmon is farmed or not farmed. They may say wild, so you want to look for wild if you're going to get it. But the way they trick you is what happens with salmon is it's got that pink color to it. What they'll do because the farm salmon doesn't have it, they'll put actually dye in it to try to trick you to think that it's wild salmon, but it's not. So what happens with salmon, they eat something called axanthin. Axanthin is what gives them that pink color. It's in the ocean where they swim. Flamingos are pink, right? Same thing. They eat a lot of this axanthin. In fact, I take this as a pill. It's actually it's a natural actually sunscreen. So I'll take that, and what it does is it keeps you from burning. And also it has astaxanthin has a lot of omega-3s in it, so that's really healthy for you. But that's the real reason why salmon is so beneficial. So if you want, email me, philgeorge@charter.net. And this is actually, it's a family-owned company. They've been around forever. It's a mom-and-pop operation. They go out, they catch the salmon, they freeze it, and they send it out to you in a big box. You're eliminating the middleman, so you're not paying, the supermarket to store it. So it's probably going to be less expensive than if you had to buy it from a supermarket. And again, you can either everybody has a freezer in the refrigerator at the top. You can just stick it in there. And I believe if I have a code for them, if you email me, philgeorge@charter.net, it's $50 off your first order. So give it a shot. In fact, my brother-in-law, I gave that order to him, and what he did is he said it's great. It tastes good. I recommend, you can eat salmon like all the time if you want. Again, I eat it at least 2 times a week, and I also have a company that has grass-fed, grass-finished meat. This is from Happy Cows. The cows, they're eating grass, they're running around, they're happy. Most of the meat you get is industrial raised. They put all these poor cows in a big barn, and they feed them crap. The grain, it's got glyphosate Roundup in it. The other thing is what they do is they inject these cows with antibiotics because they're so close to one another. They don't want them to get sick. The other thing they give them is human growth hormone to make them big and fat. Again, whatever that cow is eating, you're eating. So you want grass-fed, grass-finished. And I've got a place in, I think it's Bluffton, Georgia. It's been around for 100 years. They got these cows. They're eating the grass. They're taking care of them. The meat's really, really good in there. So you got to be really careful. You got to be really careful where you get your food, because again, whatever that animal eats, you eat. The other one we can talk a little bit about is chickens. The same thing with chickens. Emily, Dr. Emily was on, she has chickens in her backyard. So again, they're walking around, they're eating bugs. What they do with chickens, again, they put them in these huge barns and they give them stuff that's not their natural diet. Again, you probably saw on Purdue, they talk a lot now about, we don't give our chickens antibiotics and things like that. Same with eggs. So whatever that chicken's eating is going into the eggs. So you want healthy eggs. So every once in a while, if Emily has extra eggs, she'll bring them into me and I'll eat them. But I have also, you got to be careful on where you get your eggs. I have there's no discount on this, but if you want to email me, philgeorge@charter.net, I can get you a good source to get eggs. These are again from local farms. In fact, probably the best thing to do is, we're in Leicester. I mean, there's farms all around here, and I'm sure there's a lot of people with chickens. Just find a local farmer and just buy it from them. So a couple of things. You're getting it, hopefully they're letting the chickens walk around and eat bugs and stuff like that. But the other thing, what's good about you're supporting your local farmer. But if you, for whatever reasons you can't get it there, I can give you trusted sources, for eggs. And obviously for meat and salmon. Again, so the important thing is you want to get from these animal sources. They have the essential amino acids in them normally. Again, I know a lot of people like plants, and that's fine, but they lack a lot of these essential amino acids, specifically leucine. I was talking about the leucine before. It's really important to have these essential amino acids, and a lot of plants don't have it. Again, we are made of meat, so we're eating meat, chickens and things like that. So you got to be careful. You got to be careful where you're getting your food from. The other thing, obviously, this is kind of off the subject, but there's a really good website. It's called the Environmental Work Group. They're a nonprofit. Each year they put out something called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. It just means certain things you want to make sure they're organic. One of them is blueberries, because the blueberries and apples, they're very heavily sprayed with this glyphosate Roundup. You've probably seen all of these different lawsuits they're having now against now it's Bayer that owns Monsanto. You got to be careful. So some of the things you don't, I think it's avocados and things like that, you don't have to get them organic. So you can go to that website or email me, philgeorge@charter.net. I'll send you over. It's called the Dirty Dozen, Clean 15. So these dozen fruits or whatever, you want to get them always organic. The other, the Clean 15, these are 15 things you don't, like usually anything covered, like a watermelon, it's kind of covered, so it's not going to get in there, but that can be a little bit tricky sometimes too. So you got to be a little bit careful on that. So again, it's important in terms of exactly the amino acids, what kind of amino acids you have and where you're getting it from. As you get older, you develop something called anabolic resistance. That just means your body does not actually take in protein the same way it did when you're younger. One of the things, again, we talked about the sarcopenia, where you're going to fall down. So a person that's older, probably anywhere after the age of 40, you cannot metabolize protein as well. Your body doesn't build it as well. So an older person actually needs to take in more protein than a younger person, because a younger person is what they call anabolic sensitive. So if they take in a little bit of protein, zoop, it goes right into the muscles, you're ready to go. People my age, that doesn't happen. I have to take in a lot more protein than a younger person does. So again, you have to be careful, because we have that anabolic resistance. In terms of we just can't build it. So you need more protein, but as I went through in the beginning, you need the correct amount of protein. You need the correct amount of essential amino acids. And a lot of people don't know that. I mean, that's common. They just think protein is protein. It's not. Forgot to mention, again, Dr. Emily and I have a clinic right down on Burncoat Street. And if you want, in fact, I'll do a free consult. So if you want to get a hold of me, you can come down, check the clinic out. We've got the photobiomodulation for the head. Obviously we're hoping that, you get some value out of it. So if we sit down, we talk, and, I can help you out. Great. And if you want to, we have, obviously I get paid for what I do. So hopefully, you want to come on board, and we have different rates depending on your income and things like that. Keep looking at the clock, make sure I'm not running out of time. So again, you can email me, philgeorge@charter.net. And again, I can either send you information on what type of protein you have. If you want a discount on the salmon, again, we get a $50 discount on there. And again, I like about it, again, you're supporting local businesses. These aren't, just giant conglomerates that put these salmons and these chickens into these big pens and things like that. In fact, I'll tell you a real life story. When I was driving along one day, my wife was in the passenger seat, and this big truck goes by and passes on, and she could see all the little cages in there with the chickens. And my wife said, "Those poor chickens, they look so unhappy." I mean, again, you think about it, these poor animals, they're all hunched together, plus they're releasing a lot of cortisol, which is a stress hormone. Plus, if you want to get into the spiritual part, these animals are not happy. You're eating a lot of negative energy with these animals. So you want to be eating from animals that have been happy, they're fed well, and these farmers, these animals, even though they kill them, I mean, they treat them extremely well. So again, you got to be careful where you're getting your food from, because whatever that animal eats, whatever that animal experiences, you're taking it into your body. A lot of negative energy. If you don't want to get into the spiritual part, it's the cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. You're eating that meat, it's got cortisol in it, it's got a lot of stress in it. Okay, guys, so we're coming up to the end here. So again, feel free to email me, philgeorge@charter.net. We've got the stuff, the photobiomodulation, transcranial for the head, get your brain. Even if you don't have issues, I've been using this for years and years in terms of this transcranial photobiomodulation for your head. And I've been using it for years, and my brain is still working pretty good, as far as I know. In fact, Dr. Emily gave me a clean bill of health, and she's a neuropsychologist. Okay, guys, thanks for tuning in. Again, email me, philgeorge@charter.net. Any questions? And we'll see you next week. One of the most common questions I'm asked as a biochemist and health coach is, what are the best supplements to take? Choosing supplements is a tricky business. Many companies have poor quality control and questionable ingredients. In the past, I had to send clients to several different websites. I am now able to offer one-stop shopping for all the quality brands I recommend with no shipping cost and a lower price in most cases. Just email me, philgeorge@charter.net for a free consult.